Welcome to All Aboard with Ned.
Jeez, my hair's got too much gel in it.
Adam. And LK.
Well,
Yeah.
I grew up with two seasons. Hot, extremely hot.
Featuring Tim in Canton.
Small Frank, big beans.
Go.
Here we go. Good. Welcome to episode 12 of All Aboard.
Choo choo.
Choo-choo. Yeah, okay, we've started choo-choo. We've got Adam getting ready for the high holidays. You got LK drinking. What were you drinking, LK?
It's Red Bull.
There you go. Get the Red Bull to keep you awake.
Oh, yeah.
And we have our first returning guest. We have the legendary Tim from Canton.
On it.
Fresh off the Uber delivery of all the kids in his neighborhood back from hockey practice. And Tim is going to talk to us tonight. He's going to join us tonight, but he's got his own special topic related to China. And we're going to get to that right away. But first, we're going to open the show with the latest bombshell news. With the bombshell news? Okay, it was an exaggeration, but we got Jared Carabas.
Breaking news.
I think it is. I think it is.
News that Jared Carabas is joining Kirk's show permanently and Mike is gone. That comes hot off the press from Twitter, so it must be true.
There we go.
Oh, my goodness.
There we go.
Can you
Listen,
imagine
Red-
that?
Hey, no
is on
doxing
the
this
Mount-
week. I didn't
Mount-
dox Ted
well,
this week.
No.
So,
Red is on the Mount Rushmore now, so if he says it, it's got to be
it
true,
must be
right?
true. It's correct.
He pulled some weight now, right?
There you go.
So
Yeah.
with Mike gone, they had their first guest in. It was Jared Carabas, who has relocated back to Boston from New York, and he was on the show today. It was a good show. It was pretty good. He only knows baseball though, which is if Kirk wants to bring him back on, Kirk's gonna have to talk baseball, right?
Yeah.
And he pays his mother $100 to clean his house.
Yeah.
I know. How
I've-
fucked up is that?
Yeah, what was up with
I'm
that?
not surprised. I've been a Carabas fan for a while. I've met him a bunch of
course
times
you have.
when I was in New York. He's a nice guy, but like he really is one or two dimensional, and that's it. And he'll be the first to admit it. He used to go around being proud of the fact that he said that I know baseball and I know wrestling. There is nothing else that is entertainment or pop culture or this world that I know.
Wow.
Well,
So,
he's the Rocket. He's got his personality.
Exactly.
He's the Rocket. That's one personality. But as Jared Carabas from Saugus,
But you know what? I think the show was good with him. It gave a different perspective and dynamic. But he's a number one, right? He wants to be on the driver's seat, and the dynamic with Kirk would never work on a longer term. But having him once in a while, I think would be great. It gives a different perspective because he's not afraid to counter Kirk's points or just have a
They have a
conversation.
good chemistry.
Yeah, he doesn't cower like Mike sometimes, and it's not a bad thing for Mike. Mike is a sidekick, so he knows his place.
it would
Jared-
be equals, right? It would be you'd have
Yeah,
it would
but
be number ones, so that would be
and
kind of
it-
tough.
Is that what Kirk wants? I don't think he wants two number ones, right? He wants to be. It's the Kirk Meehan show. So
Right.
it was good. The participation was good, but I think it should be like, once in a while and not a everyday thing.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
I agree with that. I think that you said it perfectly that their chemistry is great, but eventually it would wane, and it will, and it's not necessarily something sustainable. And by the way, it's the same thing with Big Cat. Like Big Cat when he was on was also great, but I also again don't think that it would last forever.
How about you, Tim?
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think about Carabas?
I think Adam had said it. The guy's two-dimensional. The fact he had never heard of Tube Galore told me everything I need to know about Jared Carabas. There ain't much there.
There you go.
And Kirk seemed to be. It seems like he genuinely likes the guy. He seems like if that's his persona, he seems like a nice guy. But it was an enjoyable episode for sure. But I still go back to what's Tube Galore. Never and what. I don't know. I was just flabbergasted. He just has his mother cleaning his bedroom. What's he, 10?
But not the bathroom, right?
But not the bathroom. He's not. He's not a total animal. And I mean, it was funny. It was very funny. And obviously Kirk caught that and just said, "Wait a minute, what?" And that was very funny. But how much more is there to Jared Carabas? What did he say? I have a very famous last name. Okay.
Yeah.
Next.
So
good point. Because how long can Kirk plumb that? Even Kirk can't squeeze blood from a stone. So
I don't follow Carabas. I never follow him on Barstool. But
Me neither.
what does he do out of the baseball season? Adam, you were
so he
guy.
does. I mean, listen, he still does the baseball, just off season stuff. He does CCK with KFC and Casey, and he does a lot of wrestling stuff.
Okay.
He's a
so
big
he keeps
guy.
busy.
He keeps himself
Oh
busy.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think that. Well, wait, what's that? I think we got some breaking news about next week, Ned.
I'm just reading it off the ticker right now. It is breaking news. Flash, Watertown. Matt Carano next week sits in with Kirk. It's the revision of the K and C show. Can't be right.
Ooh, K and C. Kirk and Carano.
It is now Kirk and Carano, and that news was so shocking. We lost Tim.
Seriously.
Well,
guys, I'm here. I'm just blocking out my son.
Oh, there you go.
Son number 2 grabbing stuff from the fridge. Should be asleep, getting ready for school.
Yeah, but the EC's not watching, so there's no replication.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think so.
Not right now.
Yeah,
well, he's offline.
He's a teen, so I don't know.
Yeah, right. He's way too old for him.
Over the age threshold. So Carano's going to sit in while Steve heads up to Maine to kill deer and do all sorts of Maine kind of stuff. Close up the houses and fix up things before fall and winter set in. I think I said it on a different show how much I did really like the 2 shows with Carano when he set in first for he set in for Steve again when Steve had to go up for the Madawaska show.
Yeah, one with Mike. The first day was with Mike. The second day was with DC, and I think the second day he was more comfortable and he was talking out of his ass, right? Left and right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder how this dynamic will be now the entire week with them together. And also, I think Jared's supposed to go back next week, right? For one day. I think Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see like 3 people, in the room. See how it goes.
Is Jared a Milton's guy, Adam? Is he? I'm not Milton's. Yeah. Is he a Milton guy?
No. He was never full time. He was part time.
So because he worked at home, right?
Right. He wasn't actually in the Milton office. He was always part time at that point. He didn't go full time until after they moved to New York, and he moved to New York basically to be full time.
And he was raving. He's from Saugus, which I can't say I don't know much about Saugus except for House of Pizza, Prince's House of Pizza on Route 1,
home of the Statums.
Yep, because as Steve aptly put it, I usually go through Saugus on my way to Maine from Logan Airport. So it's like, what the hell is this? Great, stop at Dunkin' Donuts and then next stop, Maine toll. So but I think it'll be interesting with Matt sitting in with Carabas because he will realize that he's a third wheel in that one. But with him and Kirk alone, it's going to be great because I thoroughly enjoyed that he's knowledgeable, he's smart, he pushes back on Kirk.
He's got some chance. Yeah, and Matt's very entertaining, and Kirk just is a master at bringing that out. Yeah.
Oh, of course. And listen, Kirk is, and let me be clear because I want to reiterate something I said the other night on the Minifan show. But I want to just be as clear as possible. Kirk is the greatest podcaster, radio host, and entertainer ever. He is a generational talent, and he can make anyone good and anyone interesting.
He would never make any of us.
You know
what? But that's how talented he is. That's how talented he is.
And Adam, it's a shame that he's not going to listen to
Stop
this.
The greatest. Stop the greatest.
The sound of your voice makes him sick. So,
that's true. That is true. I do have a stupid voice. It's okay. He's not wrong. Kirk was right. No, but I do wonder what it's. We were all talking about last week how the show didn't seem to lose a step because Kirk and Steve have such a great chemistry and whatnot. But even though yes, he gets along with Matt, they've worked together before. Matt can push back. I'm curious to see how it's going to go without a buffer there. Matt's never been there solo with Kirk. They don't have that chemistry. It'll be very interesting to see how the dynamic works as a twosome. And then you throw in Carabas, and that's 3 people who are not used to working together.
See, guys, he's never been on a road trip, so he doesn't know. Carano was always there doing production. in
No,
Madawaska
for
and in
sure.
Right.
Saco.
And he did a great job.
Oh yeah,
He does a great.
absolutely.
He saved the
But
day
he's
in
never
Madawaska.
done. But he's never done one-on-one with Kirk.
Just the
Hold
two
on.
of them in the room.
That's a
Yeah.
different thing.
He did 1.5 on one because that second day that DC was there, the first half of the show, it was Carano and Kirk. Right?
true.
DC didn't say anything.
It's
So, no, but I think there will be a difference as well because when he subbed for Steve in February, Steve also hadn't flourished to his full potential
Yes.
like he is now, right? And so the participation of Steve was different. So now that Steve is an integral part and participates more, even especially now with Mike out, I think it will be interesting to see how Carano plugs in.
Yeah, correct. So, Tim, is there anything else you want to add to that in your eager anticipation of next week's shows featuring?
No, nothing really. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think it's going to be super entertaining.
KNC, you heard part here.
Yeah, we heard that. Hashtag KNC. Credit us. I was going to say, Adam, did Tim's son walk behind you as well?
No, my wife walked into the room.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
And that was a difference on the second time. They're like ants; they just keep popping up.
I know.
They're supposed to be in bed.
Yeah. So we brought in, as we move on to our next segment, we brought in. Yes, Adam, I'm moving on. Are you the director too?
Always. I'm taking over LK's job.
So we brought in our resident expert on Chinese affairs, everything you need to know about Wuhan, everything you know about Chinese spying on U.S. citizens, anything you want to know about what's been happening since the lockdown. We brought in the expert, the man who is, I think, aptly put, and you'll probably see it in the drop, all big beans, small wiener. We got Tim from Canton. Take it away, Tim.
Big beans, small Frank. The guy who did the psychotic presentation to my family, my neighbor's family, back in October, I think, or December about this. Yes, we did. It wasn't bad,
okay,
Adam.
Can we cut that? Can we cut that?
If that's
absolutely not.
I don't know why you're writing that when we're going to say it, but
yeah.
if
Adam is typing here. Did you guys hear me fighting with my wife? Yeah, absolutely.
I call that a conversation. Jeez, you're a hot grader.
It's the holidays. The pressure is on.
True.
They got to get everything done by tomorrow night at sunset. Come on, I understand.
True.
Go ahead, Tim. Take it away.
Okay, so the latest is, as some people have heard, because Tucker had her on his show, Dr. Li Meng Yan, and that's Y-A-N, so Dr. Yan or Dr. Yan, who was previously based out of Hong Kong, has come out and said, I have evidence that the Wuhan flu, the CCP coronavirus, CCP C19, as I like to call it, was made in the lab, was genetically modified, and that it was perpetrated on the population of the world, with infecting 12 million people, by the Chinese government and by the Chinese military. In fact, Chinese Military Scientific Institute number 3, I believe, is what she said, which makes you wonder, 3 out of how many? Is that 3 out of 3,000? But so she came out, and she is absolutely a doctor. She does have a background in studying infectious diseases, so she's got the bona fides, as they say, or the bona fides. I don't know how much credence there is to what she said, because she really hasn't offered a ton of proof. I read a little bit about the paper that she submitted. Separately, I was talking to somebody that is a PhD, and we talked about peer review. So my thoughts on peer review have really gone wishy-washy. I used to think it was this unbelievably high standard, and from what my contact said, it's just like anything else. And it's politically motivated a lot of times, and I don't mean politics as in conservative or liberal. I mean politics as in, what do I get out of this? How does this forward my cause? How does this make me look? Typical politics of any business. So it wasn't peer reviewed, and there's a lot of people saying, well, it's bullshit because she didn't have it peer reviewed. And what I've learned is peer reviews can be great and they can be total crap. The guy I talked to was a chemist, and he said, I've been trying to replicate something that was peer reviewed and approved 50 years ago. And he said, I cannot replicate it. It's impossible. And
so at this
so
point, we'll put a clip of Tucker Carlson in the interview.
yeah.
Sure.
It was this legit podcast. That's what we'd be doing right now.
Right.
When
Since we're not.
I watched it. Did you guys watch just the clip?
Yeah,
only like
I watched the whole thing. Yeah.
So there were two things that jumped out at me to underscore your point. Tucker seemed okay. He was like, I'm shocked. I wasn't expecting this. And he said, when we vet, which first of all, you don't really believe, right? But he did say, when we vetted you before bringing you on the show, this wasn't even discussed. So they did obviously check her credentials.
Yep.
She is who she is. She described herself as a virologist as well, so she knows viruses and studies them. But she wasn't in Wuhan; she was in Hong Kong, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. So we're expecting a big release, right? Because she mentioned with Tucker that she's going to be dropping an article or a paper on how this all links together and how it's true.
Yeah.
So with the question, and I totally agree with you now. And the peer reviews are bullshit. They've been
I don't think all. Just from what I've learned, a lot of them.
Oh no.
Oh, really?
Rogan's had a couple of guys on there where they purposely run through papers completely discrediting peer review because it's all politically motivated.
Yeah, and I was doing some research before us recording, and all I find is articles debunking Dr.
Bingo.
Well, of course you're going to only find that.
That's the media manipulation, right? They want us to believe it's not.
And who is funding these media outlets for the most part? The CCP, the Chinese government, the Communist Party. So it's all. I'm with the LK. It goes back to that. Consider the source. Is she credible? Don't know yet, but I'll say she's no less credible than anything that I've seen put out there. But what makes me think she is credible is the degree to which people are going. Yes, to something which she did post it to some website I think it's called Zenodo or Zenondo. She did post it there. It's her and 3 other scientists. They put the lengths that I have seen the media go to debunk her and her compatriots is pretty off the charts. And that tells me, okay, she's got something. Yep. There's a kernel of some truth to what she's saying. And she does, and Tucker does ask her, although Ned, I wonder if you caught this too. He does ask her, he kind of skips over the evidence, but she does say the way the genome is made is not natural, is what it came down to. Right? Did you catch the other thing she said though about what the Chinese military institutes have? Yes. Cows with monkey hands. That freaked me out.
Right.
I'm laughing, but she did say they've done experiments at these institutes where they've basically genetically modified cows so they had monkey hands. Yep. Sounds crazy. We're laughing, but guess what? I bet she's freaking right.
Oh, for sure. And I'll be honest. I'm quite surprised that she's actually still alive. I mean, I know she fled China, but I'm quite shocked that she's still alive. Also, her former supervisor at the university and at the WHO lab that she worked at, the World Health Organization is WHO. Yeah. I actually do. He talked about how she, didn't actually do any research on human to human transmission, like she claimed she did. Now that's not surprising. Obviously, she's gonna have people out there, and I also, by the way, think that her supervisor might be related to someone here. His name is Dr. Leo Poon. So I think he might be a long
lost. But way to get there. Way to get there.
Serious podcast.
Listen, Adam, leave the jokes to me, okay?
But she I read now this is not a joke. I read an article in Forbes by, of all people, Bruce Y. Lee. Okay. Now apparently the guy's legit. Yep. He took her to task, ripped her up and down, and said anybody can be a virologist if you have a voice and you can speak, then you should be. That's like saying that you could sing as well as the best singer in the world. This guy just went to town on her. And then you read through the article and he completely contradicts himself, says it should be going before peer review of virologists. So it's like, as Kirk always says, you can't have it both ways. So that is one of the reasons that I do believe there is a shred of truth to what she's saying. Also, and this is the nugget that I was dropping to you guys in the DM. She did work for the WHO. She got her PhD in China, not Hong Kong, but on mainland China. Both her master's and her PhD. So she's definitely got connections. Yep. So there's no doubt, like anyway, people talk. She probably knows people who are doing some research. You don't, and Adam, the supervisor first said she didn't research on the virus. Yep. Then they've since come back and said she didn't do research in December and January. So now that it's getting smaller, right?
Yeah, and you know, I think you said it right before, also, Tim, that she relied way too heavily on when she was on Tucker of just saying, here are my credentials. That's reason enough to believe me. But I think you're spot on before when you said that, you know, there are a lot of holes in her story, and it's not necessarily something that just on the surface I'm ready to just jump up and say, yes, is absolutely right. On the other hand, though, there is a lot of reason to believe that she's not just some crazy person screaming and ranting and raving at the street corner, and that there are too many, like you said, there are too many people trying to shut her up, and there's also just like there's too much of it that makes sense that it's not completely, you know, dismissible.
Where is she right now? Is she in the U.S.?
She's actually in Rikers Island in Jeffrey Epstein's cell, so she's completely safe.
She's totally safe. Well done, man. Well done.
I raced to that one.
I've never seen an incident where so many people have come out to try to debunk it.
Right.
What happened to our society where we questioned everything?
Yeah,
and so many people, they want to say, saying it was man-made does not take away from the fact that this is real and it's deadly. I don't get, well, I do know why, but it's amazing to me why so many people in the media and in politics want to say this was not man-made. That makes
Tell us
me,
why.
yeah,
You said, you know,
it makes me doubt you even more that you're telling the truth. Yep. Instead of just, you know, instead of letting it go. If you let it go, you're howling into the wind and no one's going to hear it.
That's true too, right? You let it die on its own accord. Why? Tell us why you think, you know, what you just said, like, you know, you have your reasons. What do you think?
So this is where connecting some of the dots. So she's getting a lot of flack for publishing, I guess, posting this paper again with 3 other scientists. It's not just her. She's the mouthpiece. I believe the 3 other scientists might actually still be in China. I'm not sure. But she yeah, right. She posted the paper, and in it has something that references a foundation called the Rule of Law Foundation. And this is why I think she's absolutely telling the truth. The Rule of Law Foundation is a foundation set up by a man named Guo, G-A-U, I think it's G-A-U-O. He is the 73rd richest man from China. He escaped China back in 2014 because they were coming for him. He's a Chinese billionaire in real estate, and he has set up a few foundations to bring down, in his own words, to bring down the CCP, to bring down the Chinese Communist Party. And I even saw some mainstream media outlets, again, like Forbes, saying this gentleman has lobbed accusations at communist Chinese at Chinese officials. Who fucking cares? They're communist. I don't give a shit what you say about them, but to stick up for them and say he's lobbing accusations, well, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you're a communist. You have to prove to me that the accusations aren't real, because I'll throw everything at you. There's nothing a communist says that you can believe ever. And so the mainstream media is trying to discredit this very rich person who has invested in this foundation, who has also is now supporting this scientist and maybe the other 3. And this is the same gentleman who owns the yacht that Steve Bannon was on when he was just arrested recently.
Dum, dum, dum.
So
wow.
Now you've got the Bannon factor, right? And this is what people are beating the drum. Oh, she's associated with Steve Bannon. Okay. That doesn't, you know, I remember seeing a movie one time and they said, just because a hooker saw someone commit a murder and she's a hooker, it doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right.
Like them or not, the truth is the truth.
You know what, Tim? I think you hit a good point here that the media likes to criticize and bash, here the U.S. things that are wrong, that the president's a bigot and et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, they are fucking kissing, the communist party's ass that do even worse back there. So can we have one standard? Can we standardize the criticism?
No, they won't.
And exactly because it's an election year. I think which make things
it has nothing
even
to do
worse.
with an election year.
It always like
no. But it's always like this.
No,
it is always
makes it worse.
like this.
But it makes it worse.
I don't know.
But the money coming in. I mean, we all. We talk about these are the same people that purport to hate capitalism, and they worship the almighty dollar, or I forget what it's called, the dong over in China. Is that what it is, Ned?
The yuan.
Yuan.
I think, let's go back a bit though. This is all related to the election cycle. Trump has been extremely difficult on the unfair trade agreement with China. China is an exporting nation. They're not an importing nation. They always have been. That's why they get hooked
Adam is in the rich level of Jews. He doesn't feel the pressure, the problems of
dear
society.
Lord.
But
dear Lord,
so you've got all the big.
True.
I mean, the obvious one. Besides car parts and aircraft parts made in China. Think about that. But the big box stores, all the cheap shit you buy, everything comes from there.
Drywall,
moldy drywall, right? From 10 years ago. But so China is now going to spend money to stop Trump from being reelected because he knows they'll get a better deal with Sleepy Joe. So, or even Harris. If Joe drops dead tomorrow and Harris runs in, they'll get a better deal with her.
With the Harris administration, totally.
Correct. But not only with them, it's everywhere because Trump's pressuring the allies to drop China from a bunch of contracts.
It's not
getting the US on board. It's like Europe and everywhere else.
So look, we had the 9/11 moment in my industry was domestic air cargo was booming and all the bellies of flights were full. After 9/11, they shut down for 2 weeks. Companies instituted trucking instead of they just took an extra day in getting it there, but they trucked it and it was cheaper. It's never come back. The business has never come back. What China did during the PPE was totally fuck up the supply chain logistics, preventing countries from getting the vitally needed gowns, masks, gloves to first responders, hospitals, old folks' homes, whatever it was supposed to go globally. The world has learned its lesson. China isn't going to be in trouble. They don't have enough money, first of all, to continue to spend on what they're doing. So now they're spending in these countries to enhance their own image, silence critics. I mean, I'm surprised we haven't seen, dissident assassinations yet.
I think that's coming. I think the way they're going about it though is very, very calculated. They're doing social assassinations, right? Yeah. Debunk. I mean, we have it too. They've got cyber warfare divisions, right? But this is the amount of money that they're funneling into academia would make you puke in your mouth. Oh, yeah. It is sickening. And when someone's paying your bill, you gotta bite your tongue a little bit. And some people take it to the next level and they go out there and they fight their fight. So I always look at, okay, well, who is fighting this and why are they so vehemently? It's like to take it to a different category. Why are people so vehement about that movie Cuties being on Netflix? I don't get it, which makes me wonder, what is it in your background that we should be wondering about? I mean, who the fuck sticks up for that?
Agreed.
Yep. Yeah. Hey, just going back to the man-made virus, and I'm not a specialist. I don't know if you would know the answer, but the virus being man-made, is it harder, the same, or easier to find a solution for an antivirus?
That's a great question. That is a great question. I don't know. I would think, I guess if you make
viruses mutate naturally.
Right. I was going to say, I think it may have started out as man-made, but eventually it'll mutate.
There's already, France, by the way, had 10,000 new cases reported yesterday. Yeah. So they're now worried in Europe about the second wave, which of course is just, red meat to the Democrats in the U.S. Yep. You guys live in Massachusetts, except for Adam. And you guys have one of the lowest case counts in the country, and yet you're on a military lockdown.
My town is 0.0001%.
Yeah.
And of that 0.0001%, I would say half of those are probably retests. Every time you retest for COVID, you are listed as COVID positive. Whether you're in the hospital, because that's the way the state has mandated it in order to keep us locked down and subjugated. Look what happened in Nashville. The mayor has been exposed for hiding information. Yeah, about the bars. So the numbers are incredibly low. We're literally getting to the point where on a suburban street, you have a better chance of walking out, getting hit by a bus that doesn't come down the street while lightning is striking. That's how low the numbers are. But the CCP has done a great job with this scandemic.
You know what pisses me off? They are all open. They are all open, working normally, while the rest of the world is fucked. You know, so they started this. They are back to normal because they need to export, like Ned said.
No cases, right? They're all clean now. But hold on a second.
Right.
Okay, that was a great point. But we need to go back. Tim just dropped a little nugget of a bomb. What was it called, Tim? Hey, what?
Oh, the scamdemic?
Scamdemic.
Yeah.
That's not mine. I've heard it from a few people.
I like it. Hashtag scamdemic.
Yep, I like it.
And I say again, the virus is real. It's absolutely real. This is what kills me when you start to talk to people about what it actually is. The virus is absolutely real. And that should scare people. The fact that humanity was able to manipulate a virus that only affected animals for thousands of years to be able to kill a certain segment of society. And all of a sudden, this virus, by the way, is so brilliant that it stopped the democracy protests in Hong Kong. That is an incredible virus. Incredible to me that it targets people who are standing up and not sitting down in a restaurant. Yes. I mean,
a virus that doesn't attack people that do protests, right?
Yeah.
So the virus respect the protester.
But it, all kidding aside, it is a real virus. But it's a great. Now you got my brain bent about, does that mean the antidote is easier or not? And I would ask you guys, are you going to take a vaccine?
No.
Nope.
I had originally said no. And then I spoke to a couple of doctor friends of mine who were actually
funded by Bill Gates.
No. Soros.
Much better.
No. But they were both. He's a doctor, she's a nurse, and they were both signing themselves up for a trial. And they said that we wouldn't do it if we didn't think it was something that would be real and that would actually be helpful. Now, I don't think they're going to take the Russian or Chinese or whatever version.
The only two approved that way.
Right.
Right. Yeah. But you know what? Like, I think going back to what Tim said, but my biggest problem is not knowing the long-term effect on kids, right? Yes. And I would never forgive myself if something happens to my kids. And that's why I don't think we should go back to schools, because it's a way of replicating the virus very quickly, right? Yep. And I think point in case and just playing devil's advocate is Adam, right? Adam, you were telling us that one of the grades
one of the grades in my kids' school, right? Because my kids are in school. One of them, a teacher and a student, both tested positive, so the whole grade has to quarantine. It's all. And then grade 8 is in quarantine.
The whole school probably will close.
Eventually, They're Rosh Hashanah starts tomorrow night, and Sukkot, which is the last of the holiday season, is in about 3 or 4 weeks from now. Yeah. And there's talk that either in the time between Rosh Hashanah and Sukkot, they're just going to close the school and just say we're remote, or it'll be 2 weeks after that, depending on a lot of different variables, including whether people actually go to their families, whether this thing, how it spreads throughout. But it's already, the dominoes are already falling.
Yeah, that's what worries me.
I've taken my kids to the bus stop. There have been less and less people waiting.
Right. And that's what worries me. Like, I think we should open, but because I don't know what's going to happen with the kids, it's that struggle.
I was telling my wife this, that, the other night, and this broke my heart. My daughter was talking about how when she's older, she's gonna live near us so that this way she can still see us and all the time and blah blah blah. And she goes, my daughter's turning 6, and she looks at me and goes, and hopefully by the time I'm a mommy, there won't be any coronavirus anymore, so my kids can actually go into your house. And I'm
like,
why the fuck are you talking about?
That's what drives me crazy.
It broke my heart. Broke my heart.
So let's move on to since we're never going to solve that problem, but let's move on to something that will mend our hearts, and that is we have great news coming out of the Middle East.
Adam, I have a question about holidays.
Yes.
So this weekend is Rosh Hashanah, right?
Yes.
And what's the following holiday?
Yom Kippur
is from Friday will be Yom Kippur, and that's on Monday, the 28th.
The badass. You think Lent is tough, Tim? Fuck.
Oh my god.
Oh no. But Yom Kippur was a great war, so they'll always have that.
That's right. That was
a great war. What is Shana Tova?
So Rosh Hashanah, Rosh is head, Shana is year, and so it literally translates to head of the year. It's the start of the new year. Shana Tova is Hebrew for Happy New Year's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, because there was something about Joe Biden saying he was celebrating Shana Tova. Yep. So that is just New Year?
Well, he can't.
He should have said Rosh Hashanah, but, in his mental state.
It just means Happy New Year?
Okay.
Yep. So not as big a gaffe as...
No, not as big. Yeah.
And before we get going too, I think we had this conversation before, Adam. Down here in Hollywood, they refer to it as sukkahs.
Yep.
You call it...
No, I call it sukkahs.
Oh, you do? Okay. All right. Sorry.
Suckers.
No.
Suckers?
No, it's
sukkahs.
No.
You sure that
KOS.
You sure they're not just walking by you, Ned?
Little huts.
You sure they're just not walking by you and calling you tuckus?
Yeah, something like that.
Get cooking up in yum.
So big news of the last 10 days or so.
Yeah.
We had the United Arab
Emirates. Last week?
Yeah, the United Arab Emirates first, I think it was last week, announced a path to normalizing relations with Israel. Makes sense. And earlier this week, Bahrain followed suit.
Bahrain, yep.
It's a big deal. And of course, they're not saying anything about it. I even saw some idiot tweet, how can they have peace when they haven't been at war?
Yep.
Adam had a response to that.
Yeah, I did. I was just typing up some notes to say for this whole section, and I ended up writing about a little over 2 pages. First of all, to the left-wing media morons that we're talking about how there was no war. First of all, shut the fuck up. Second of all, tell that to my friends and my family who've served in the IDF, and tell them that there's no war. Tell them to the far too many number of families that were destroyed because they lost loved ones in terrorist attacks that there's no war. And by the way, come say it to my face, and here you go, Tim Riggles. After high school, many people in my world take a year off to move to defer college for a year, move to Israel, and study in a yeshiva, which is a Jewish seminary for men. And I did that as well. So I'm not going to sit there and talk about the 80 or so suicide bombings that happened in the year that I was there. I was in a city just outside of Jerusalem. Sorry, I'm trying to say things in English. So I am going to talk about one of them. First of all, for everyone in Israel, again, like the word pigua, which is the word for bomb or attack, that's all too familiar part of everyone's vocabulary. And so April 11th, 2002 was a Thursday, and the school I picked because it didn't have a curfew. And Fridays in Israel are Sundays here. So there's no school, there's no work, nothing on Fridays. So Thursday, April 11th, I went out. We were out with some friends, and I ended up staying at a hotel in Jerusalem instead of going back to my dorm. Did sleep a lot that night. Was insanely tired the next morning.
Got a blowjob coming.
Listen, I'm not gonna comment one way or the other. But anyways, the next morning I was extremely tired, and I was taking the bus to a place called Machane Yehuda, which is the one of the biggest shopping areas. It's like the Shuk. And I was going to get some of my pre-Shabbos shopping done. And I remember cursing myself out because I stupidly got off one stop too soon. And as I was walking over from the stop that I got off to right stop, which is right in front of Machane Yehuda, I watched the bus that I was on explode. And it blew up. And, I know that if by a miracle of God that Kirk is still listening, he'll make a comment about how he, it's a travesty to the world that I wasn't still on the bus. And that's fine. No, but it certainly fucked you up a little bit. But, again, don't tell me that there's no war when, that's something that happens all too often and far too often. And I think you all said it right. Trump will never get recognized for this. But in 2017, he recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, and he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem in 2018. And if you remember correctly, everyone said, doing this would be a proverbial nuke. The UN even declared that Trump's move made his entire Middle East politics null and void. There will never be anything. And decades later, Egypt, Jordan, and now we have the UAE and Bahrain, and there is so much trickle down from this. And that's what's really most encouraging to me, is that just the push to expand the diplomatic, trade, and security cooperation, and the pressure that this puts on the other Arab states and nations to stop boycotting.
And the only two nations that count, the two biggest nations that when I looked at the list of those who supported and approved and those who didn't, the two that jumped out that condemned it was, I don't consider Palestine a country, but the Palestinian state, Turkey, and Iran.
Yep.
Because we also had to keep in mind that this is a great thing for Israel. This is also a way to isolate Iran and Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And remember, the money is all in Dubai. It's not in Jeddah. Yep. It's in Dubai. So once the UAE, and there are 7 of them, there are 7 Emirates. They're all now looking at this from a financial standpoint. Bahrain is also wealthy in natural gas. It's also very
by the way, Bahrain is also connected to Saudi Arabia. So there's no way that this deal would have been done if the Crown Prince didn't approve it. Which, by the way, is that going to be the next one?
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah.
So you think
stealing my thunder, Adam, but yes, it's exactly what I was getting to.
Right.
The inside discussion in at least in Europe is that Saudi Arabia is going to be next, and then maybe as soon as next week.
Yep.
And in a very self-promoting video here, we're going to discuss the Middle East next week on History Buffs. By the way,
there you go. Good.
That's good. No, but I think I have 2 comments on that. You were explaining about how war is real in Israel, and I've been there once. And I went to Jerusalem. I went to the four quarters, right?
Yep.
Is that how they call?
Yeah.
And my tour guide was like, "Hey, you're walking here. The main streets is fine, right? It's all touristy, it's fine. Yep. You can walk around, talk.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna take you to a few secondary, streets and tertiary. When we enter those, just lower your head, don't say anything, don't yell, because people live here. They take as a disrespect."
Yep.
And the best way he described it is this is a pressure cooker just waiting to be hit by a nail, to explode. All it takes is a little nail and a tap,
yep.
So don't be the hammer that will tap the nail.
Yep.
And I think that was the best way to describe the whole, Jerusalem and Israel Palestine situation. That's one thing. But my question to you, Adam, is, do you think that those Arab countries recognizing Israel and making those treaties, do you think it's of interest to get closer to the U.S. and acquire technology from the U.S.?
I think it's, first of all, I think it's partially yes. I think it's also to get it from Israel. I mean, I think they're realizing that it's hard to boycott Israel when it's become what it's become. But I think that
economic
to me, right? Well, yeah. I mean, to me, it's really that as part of this deal, they've both acknowledged that they've both designated Hezbollah, for example, as a terrorist organization. And, this also, and I was really, where I think this continues and why I think Trump is really pushing hard on this is he's working to be the foreign affairs president. And he is, I think this is going to impact, and, to answer a question you had before, LK, when I mentioned that I was going to talk about Serbia and Kosovo, is that I think that this is on the heels of the UAE and Israel deal. So about a month ago, Trump secured the diplomatic victory with normalizing economic relations between Kosovo and Serbia.
Correct.
And
that went unnoticed, by the way. You're right.
Correct.
Yeah,
and by the way, even before that, I'm very big in APAC, the American Israel political campaign political group. And I remember in March of this year at the APAC annual policy conference, the President Vučić of Serbia, he said that when I remember my jaw hitting the floor when he said that they were going to move their embassy to Jerusalem, and that to me, this is what this is, and I think that it's more than anything else, it's less about what they're getting out of the U.S. and more about what they're doing to secure Israel and help it to survive for the importance that it provides to the world, because this puts an insane, and Ned is spot on, the insane amount of pressure that this is going to put on Iran more than anything else is just, they're the largest supporter of Hezbollah and the Palestinians.
So I have a question. Does anybody know, is the UAE and Bahrain, are they Sunni, Shia? What do we know?
They're Sunni.
Predominantly. Are they both Sunni?
Yeah.
So,
Shia are really Iran.
Iran.
And I want to not in Iraq. No, there was a Shia, an Iranian-sponsored Shia movement back right after the war, or right during the in 2003, 4, 5, but it never took hold.
So do you guys think this has also to do with those two sects hate each other more than they hate Israel? Look at them. Look at Iran and Iraq. They went to war over differing beliefs. It's like Northern Ireland. It's Protestant and Catholic. Do you think that the all the other more Shia nations will follow along? And I know Iran's been trying to. I mean, they've got a hegemony in the Middle East.
Correct.
Right now. They do because of the past 10 or so years, they have expanded their influence in the Middle East as we've drawn down. Do you think the Shias look at this and say, you know what, we got to kind of hedge our bets here and maybe align with those that are going to be best at protecting us? I don't know. Yeah. What do you guys think it has to do with more within the Muslim community than Muslim-Israeli relations?
I don't know. The cynic in me thinks that there is a hidden agenda on why they're doing that, and they're gonna fuck Israel at some point. I really
you and me
hope
both.
Not.
I agree.
Yeah. But like Egypt, I don't trust them 100%. That's all I'm gonna say.
Correct, and I would say the same thing, LK, except there is precedent. There's Jordan and there's Egypt, and the relationships with Jordan has been much better than is with Egypt. Egypt have had some very
ups and downs
since the peace treaty was signed in '78. But they haven't crossed the line. So I think.
Well, don't they have Hezbollah groups up north near Israel in Egypt?
Not in Egypt.
No. That's in.
Hezbollah. And correct me if I'm wrong, Adam. Hezbollah is backed by Hamas is Iran. Hezbollah is
Lebanon.
Lebanon. Thank you. There we go. Thank you.
And Mubarak did a incredible job. I mean, some people say a tyrant, but he also kept terrorism under control. he did it in his own methods.
But you're right. It is something, but this is also, I think this comes more from a financial gain. Mm-hmm. It's trade deals. That's what it really amounts to. And those two countries do a lot of.
Didn't one of the countries, was it Bahrain or UAE? Didn't one of them get a big fighter aircraft contract?
UAE, right?
Was it the UAE?
Yeah, they are interested, but not on the Israeli jet fighters, the jet fighter, the American ones, the F-35. Right?
Yeah, and let's face it, guys. Any peace deal, like you said, LK, it's what's in their best interest.
Yep.
Yeah, it always has to do with business. I mean, who's going to sign a peace deal that doesn't give you something in the end? I mean, freaking Cambodia did it with Vietnam. Yep. I mean, the only one that hasn't done it is North and South Korea. But Yeah, it's always about
For
business,
now.
and to downplay it. I mean, business helps people prosper and make, build a
Well,
safer society.
Yeah.
and stability is good for business.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the biggest thing.
yeah.
You can't
Peace is great
continue-
for business.
What
Yes.
went on? What
Yeah.
went on in Syria in the past, up until recently, but in the past few years, cannot continue. It's not sustainable, and it's bleeding out into all the countries. It's bleeding into Iraq. It's bleeding into Jordan.
Yep.
And poor Jordan, they're the financially they've got no oil in Jordan. They have no natural gas.
They've got nothing.
They got nothing. But they've had two great kings, in my opinion.
And is it amazing to you guys that Syria is the most untalked about civil war that's been going on for over a decade now?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
It's amazing.
For me, and to speak about not talk about it, I guess I guess I'd say my final thoughts on all this, obviously relates to Israel and the Palestinians, and I think as a someone who's a PR guy also, I think that this is a great, I think I'm fooling myself into thinking that this will be great for Israel from a PR side in terms of trying to win over the mainstream media. I think that Israel's sort of proving the what did she say? Golda Meir once said that if Israelis put down their guns, there would be no more Israel.
Right.
If the Arabs put down their guns, there would be no more fighting. And I think that, for me, this sort of proves it. This is all the proof that is needed to show that Israel is absolutely willing to cooperate with any Arab nation or any nation at all that's willing to do the same. And, I think also if you actually, and if you actually look at this objectively, and I don't think the mainstream media will, but if they will, this is the Palestinians should be rioting in the streets against their government, who are turning their backs on their people out of blind hatred. And it's just the amount of massive amount of positivity that would come from a peace agreement to the Palestinians and the Israelis, and the ball is in the Palestinians' court, and they're just
what's the first thing a country is going to do once they've had relations that were warlike down to peace? They're going to secure the border and make it so they're going to escalate tensions on the border. So it works. It works. These people have been abused by their so-called government. When Israel, time and time again, and except for the attack in Lebanon in back in the 80s, it's always been defensive.
Yep.
So or a reaction to an upcoming attack. So maybe they preemptively attacked when they thought they were going to be attacked.
I mean, Israel needs to fight for their lives all the time, right?
But one last thing before we go off, though, and excuse me, Tim, one last thing. Keep in mind too that the Shia nations are for the most part not Arab.
Correct.
So Iranians are not Arab. Iraqis are not Arab. And even make it more confusing, Iraqis are Assyrian, not Syrians. Assyrians.
Assyrians.
And Turks are also Shia as well.
That's a whole different ball, and that, Ned. That is.
Yep.
It's the World War I again. Yep. Is rearing its head with freaking Turkey at the anyway. Adam. I know this hits you because you have tweeted about this, but I think it also hits all of us. The study that was done with students was just alarming to me, and it made me nauseous. Yep. I saw your tweet about how you were directly affected, and I can tell you, as somebody who's not directly affected, that is disgusting, and it is scary. It is scary because if these socialists and these communists have their way, the Holocaust would never be talked about, and no one would ever know it happened. And the only thing they talk about is how communists were persecuted, which they weren't. They never have been. Yep. So do you want to talk about the results of that survey?
Actually,
shocking.
Yes, but stay tuned for next week, because that's actually on our schedule to talk about next week. I'll say this, in defense of that, let me start by actually defending it. My friend and I were talking about this, and he said, yeah, but in all fairness, if you ask any random American about pick an atrocity that's happened and a genocide that's happened in Africa, in Asia, and I mean, look at the NBA with China. I mean, the response will be the same. Now, granted, this is World War II, and this is a much more mainstream. And yes, for me, it's obviously much more impactful. My grandparents are went through it and survived, thank God. And it is, my friends and I from high school have a email chain, and one of the threads in that email chain is the subject of the email is, it is definitely happening again, and that is just filled with, every time we see an article like that, every time something that is just, listen, history repeats itself. I have no doubt about that. I think it's why it's so crucial for Israel to be Israel and to be as powerful as it is, because if not, it could be the end. And I think that it's alarming and it's disturbing. I think it also says a lot about the American educational system.
I think that more than anything.
Adam,
and it's
not to jump in, but when I was in middle school and in high school, school budgets are cut. You really do move quickly through history, both American history and other history.
Yeah.
But you know what they would do for when we came to World War II is we would have discussions on it for like a period of like say 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'd see films from World War II, and inevitably they always had the opening of Dachau and Auschwitz, and it really moved the kids at that age. Are they no longer teaching these kids that shit?
No,
and if you didn't learn it in school, you got it in Hollywood.
Yeah,
so we're always.
We're also all old enough to still have had actual survivors come and talk.
Yeah,
to us
connection. Yeah,
like that.
Sort of
and
connection.
and obviously, listen, for me, there are many things that I will never be able to forget from my grandfather, including, I remember once saying to him about how much I loved Christmas lights, and he said to me, "Really? To me, every time I see a Christmas light, I have flashbacks to how much worse the beatings were at that time of year."
Right.
Or the fact that I used to have to sleep with earplugs in when we would be at their apartment in Florida, because the walls were so thin, and he, on cue, every morning at 4 a.m. would wake up screaming because he never, until the day he died, he had nightmares every single time. And
I think you're right that history is going to repeat itself, which is shocking. And did you guys see the posts about, what was that? Jacob Blake, the guy who got shot 7 times, and then Biden met with him, and there was all this stuff about the dad's an anti-Semite, and apparently he is an anti-Semite. But there was something that he put out there that is absolutely true. King Leopold of Belgium is responsible for upwards of 10 million deaths. And I never knew about that till I was in my 40s. And that is wrong. We should know about that. What he did to that continent, to that country in particular, to a whole race of people, it's again, he did it way before the Holocaust. This is going, and it happened in Serbia. It's going to happen again. But to think that people, when we know about it, and they knowingly say, "No, I never heard about it. I don't believe you."
I know Adam needs to run. I just need you there. I just sent you a link to a YouTube video. If you can play that, I think this is the snapshot of American young society. I know, Justin. I don't know if you're there.
I'm so curious to see what this is. Otherwise, we can just add it in later, I guess.
Justin, stop watching playing video games. You there? Come on.
All right. Well, listen. We'll watch it next week.
I wanted to be a happy.
I know, right?
After the corona.
You going back to fight with your wife? Because if that's how you fight, I mean, I would love to end every night like that with my wife.
There you go. We're redoing the kitchen, and we're DIYing it. So
that's
it's
tough.
So she's downstairs painting, and she needs me to finish doing stuff while she's also cooking for Rosh Hashanah and trying to do all of that together, while I'm like, I got to go talk to 3 other idiots like me, and
that is a relationship
bullshit
breaker
around for an hour. So she's not wrong. Again, she's not wrong. Kirk's not wrong.
We know.
Then what we ought to do then is we'll bring this to an end. We'll wrap it up with Adam's DIY, which will be posted up on YouTube channel as well, on how to screw up your kitchen.
Boy.
There you go.
Two sinks.
Oh yeah. 2 sinks, 2 dishwashers. Yep.
That's right.
2 sets of dishes.
2 arguments. Oh,
Two wives as well or not?
Oh God, I don't. I've never been able to. If nothing else, I've never been able to understand people who have second families, because how the hell, like, why would you? I mean, one is more than enough. Seriously.
Right. All right, guys, let's wrap it up.
Well, hang on.
All right.
In the ancient days of Hebrew, when they had they had like 4 dishwashers and 4 cleans?
Oh yeah. Listen, Shana Tova to all of the Jewish Minifans out there. Have a good Rosh Hashanah.
All right.
Perfect. Let's thank Tim from
See you next week.
sitting in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you as always.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much.
Please
good to talk to you guys.
Like, subscribe, and look for in the comments. I wrote it down. ruleoflaw.com.
Check out History Buffs.
Thank you very much.
See you, boys.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.